Today, we're jumping into a classic short story by R.K. Narayan called Gateman's Gift, and it's this really fascinating look at how something as simple as a kind gesture, a little gift, can twist and turn into a source of absolute all-consuming terror.
All right, let's start with something I know you've felt. That knot in your stomach when you see an official-looking envelope in the mail, or that email from your boss you're just too scared to open. That very specific kind of dread? That's the emotional heart of the story we're about to get into. But before we can meet our main character, we really have to understand the world he lives in. And that world comes from the mind of R.K. Narayan, one of the true pioneers of Indian literature and English, who's famous for creating this incredible fictional town called Malgudi.
And this, right here, this is the key to his genius. See, Narayan wasn't interested in big, epic dramas or huge political events. No, his magic was in the everyday, the mundane. He found these profound, often really funny and ironic truths in the lives of just ordinary people, like school teachers, shopkeepers, and in our story, a gatekeeper.
So let's meet the man himself, Govind Singh. For 25 years, his entire world, his whole universe, was the front gate of a company called Ingladias. His life was just a monument to discipline, order, and routine.
And this wasn't just a job for him. In his mind, he was a crucial part of the company's machinery. That khaki uniform, that was his identity. And the general manager, his sahib, was like a distant god he worshipped from afar. So when he finally retired, his pension of 12 rupees a month felt like an absolute fortune, you know? You're promised a future of nothing but peace and comfort.
But what happens when a life built on routine just stops? That void left by his job was huge, until, completely out of the blue, it gets filled by this brand new passion that changes absolutely everything for him.
So Govind Singh discovers he has this amazing hidden talent for modeling with clay. It all started when he fixed a little doll, but it just blossomed from there into this incredible artistic calling. He started making entire villages, people, animals, finding a kind of joy and purpose he never ever had standing at that gate.
Now, because he's so loyal, he decides his old sahib deserves to see these amazing creations, so every time he goes to collect his pension, he leaves his latest little masterpiece for the general manager. And this simple, respectful act is what leads to this single, terrifying object showing up and completely shattering his new peaceful life.
A postman shows up with a registered letter from the company. Now, you have to understand, for a man like Govind Singh who can't read and has been taught his whole life to fear authority, this isn't just a piece of mail. The fact that he had to sign for it made it feel like a summons or even a verdict. His first instinct was just pure, gut-wrenching terror.
He actually refuses to even take the letter. And from that moment on, Govind's mind becomes his own worst enemy. The mystery of what's inside that envelope starts to fester, and his imagination just runs wild, cooking up these catastrophic scenarios that take over his entire reality.
And this chart? It perfectly maps out his whole tragic journey. He goes from a life of total order to this new world of creativity, but that one unopened letter throws him straight into absolute chaos. A complete and total mental breakdown.
I mean, he stops sleeping, he stops eating, he becomes totally convinced that his art was some kind of arrogant mistake, and this letter is his punishment. He just starts wandering the streets of Malgudi, looking like a mess, raving to anyone who listened that his old boss sent him a death warrant.
Finally, just desperate and broken, he stumbles back to the one place he fears the most, the Ingladia's office. And it's there that the terrible and unbelievably ironic truth of that letter is finally revealed.
And this is where the story just punches you in the gut. The contrast is just, wow. Every single thing he was terrified of was the exact opposite of the truth. He was imagining punishment, but the letter held a reward. He pictured anger, but it was filled with nothing but admiration.
The accountant, seeing the awful state he's in, just tears the letter open. And inside, it's not a notice topping his pension, it's a check for 100 rupees. Turns out, the general manager absolutely loved the clay models and sent him a gift. The death warrant was actually a life-changing bonus.
And this gets right to the core of the story's powerful irony. Think about it. The reward for his art is the very thing that destroys the artist inside him. His passion brought him to the brink of insanity, not because of the art itself, but because of how it was received.
But here's the thing. This shocking revelation, it doesn't bring him relief. It doesn't bring him any joy. The trauma of the terror he put himself through leads him to make this final, just heartbreaking choice.
He tells the accountant, that's it, he's done, he will never touch clay again. The whole experience taught him that art and recognition and that whole world of his superiors, it's all just too dangerous and stressful for a simple man like him to handle. He chooses the safety and predictability of his tiny pension over the emotional roller coaster of being creative.
So what's the big takeaway here? It's a powerful lesson, really. It shows how just not knowing, how ignorance, can create a fear that's way more destructive than any real threat. It's a warning against letting our own minds create these monsters, because so often, reality is much, much kinder than our imagination.
And that leaves us with this really tough question to think about. Govind Singh chose security over his art. Did he make the right call? It really forces us to look at our own lives, the price of our passions, and what we might be willing to give up just for a little peace and quiet.